Sit back, relax. Check this out. There seems to be intelligence behind the universe. That something came from nothing means that something wasn't worse. A flash of light, a burst of heat, and though the odds were long, it only took a few billion years for me to sing this song. If you think your life is boring and the meaning has gone flat, then shut your mouth and close your eyes and meditate on that. You seem to be determined to mold your life at will. You think your thoughts, you choose your acts, you fight to get your fill. I have one question for you I'd really like to pose. Who's the you that thinks your thoughts and knows what thinking knows? If you think your life is boring and the meaning has gone flat, shut your mouth, close your eyes, meditate on that. You seem to be so certain of what it's all about. You've got a plan, you've got a goal, of this you have no doubt. Have you ever stopped to wonder if this was all a lie? Who's the you before you're born and who after you die? If you think your life is boring and the meaning has gone flat, shut your mouth, close your eyes, meditate on that. If you think your life is boring and your groove has gone amiss, sit back, relax, close your eyes, and meditate on this.
Don't give me no bull, don't give me no crap, don't give me no trash. Don't give me your talk, don't spin me no yarn, don't give me no sass. Don't give me no boost, don't give me no bunk, don't give me no jive, don't give me no junk, don't give me no sauce, don't give me no hate, give it to me straight. Don't give me no plug, don't give me no dreck, don't give me no tripe. Don't give me your gab, don't shovel no shit, don't give me no hype. Don't give me no pitch, don't give me no juice, don't give me no fight, don't give me no truce, don't give me no bling, don't give me no blah, give it to me raw. No shock, don't give me your spiel, don't give me no stuff. Don't give me no rant, don't tell me no tale, don't give me no fluff. Don't give me no rap, don't give me no lip, don't give me no line, don't give me no trip, don't give me no flack, don't give me no fizz, tell it like it is. Don't give me no boost, don't give me no bunk, don't give me no jive, don't give me no jump, don't give me no pitch, don't give me no juice, don't give me no fight, don't give me no truce, don't give me no rap. What's the story when my lips stop flapping? When my heart stops beating and my mind stops yapping? What's the story when I've up and died? What's the story on the other side? Will it all be sweetness and light, with the color theme heavenly white? Nobody's annoyed, forever enjoy, or is it just an empty void? What's the story when I meet my maker? Will I be praised as a giver or judged as a taker? What's the story when I'm up and died? What's the story on the other side? Will my spirit prevail and persist, or will I totally cease to exist? I guess I just have to wait to discover my fate. Will I burn in hell or reincarnate? What's the story when I kick the bucket? When I take my last breath and my body says fuck it? What's the story when I've up and died? What's the story on the other side? Well, you know that it could be worse to be one with the universe. No need to moan over my gravestone. I'm stepping into the great unknown. What's the story on the other side? You don't think your thoughts think you. You don't dream your dreams, the dreams ensue. You don't have control and you don't have a clue. Have control and you don't have a clue. You don't live your life, life lives you. You don't take a breath, breath breathes you. You don't blow a sneeze just blew. There are universal forces that will make you say achoo. You don't live your life, life lives you. You might be frightened to discover there's no domain that you possess, but there's a freedom that arises when you admit you're powerless. You don't fall in love, love finds you. You don't have a say who you're attracted to. You don't have a say over who you wanna screw. You don't live your life, life lives you. Your heart beats you. You don't grow your hair just grew. You don't make your pee and you don't make your poo. You don't live your life, life lives you. You don't think your thoughts, you don't dream your dreams, you don't take a breath, you don't fall in love, you don't beat your heart, you don't grow your hair, you don't live your life, life lives you. You wish you will, but you won't. You wish you do, but you don't. You wish you could, but you couldn't. You wish you would, but you wouldn't. You wish you are, but you're not. You wish you had, but you hadn't. You wish you did, but you didn't. You wish it is, but it isn't. You wish your life had gone according to your plan. Well, you pay a heavy tax when you argue with the facts. You wish you hit it, but you missed. You wish you weren't, but you pissed. You wish it wasn't such a cost. You wish you won it, but you lost. You wish you fought it, but you fled. You wish you heard what I said. You wish you laughed, but you cried. You wish the rules did not apply. You wish your life had gone according to your plan. Well, you acted like a douche when you argue with the truth. For money, but you're broke. You wish it wasn't such a joke. You wish you're strong, but you're weak. You wish you had another peak. You wish you're skinny, but you're fat. You wish for this, you wish for that. You wish you're high but you're low. You wish you're fast but you're slow. You wish your life had gone according to your plan. Well, you multiply resistance when you argue with existence. I don't need you to tell me that what I say is true. I don't need you to see it from my point of view. I don't need you to buy that I'm not selling you a scam. I don't need to be right, but I am. I don't need you to believe that my story is legit. I don't need you to tell me what you know you should admit. My world is not dependent on you getting who I am. I don't need to be right, but I am. Feels so good to be right. I'm sleeping like a baby, nothing keeps me up at night. If I'm wrong, I'll be damned. I don't need to be right, but I am. I don't need you to follow my professional advice. Well, you take it or you of this man. I don't need to be right, but I am. Feels so good to be right. I'm sleeping like a baby, nothing keeps me up at night. If I'm wrong, I'll be down. I don't need to be right, but I am. I don't need to be right, but I am. I don't need to be right, but I am. If you're hopeless, you can accept the fact. If you're hungry, you can fix yourself a snack. If it's daunting, no need to be afraid. When life gives you lemons, make some lemonade. If you're lonely, you can hang out with yourself. If you're grumpy, at least you have your health. Lack excitement, learn to rollerblade. When life gives you lemons, make some lemonade.
Hi, I'm Alex Howard, and welcome to Conscious 2, and welcome to Training the Mind, Freeing the Heart, a free 3-hour live stream with Martin Aylward here on Conscious 2. And if you've ever seen a Conscious 2 live event before, you'll know that part of what we try to do is capture the intimacy and transmission of an in-person event for you watching wherever you are in the world. Obviously, the temptation you're watching something online is to go on your mobile phone, to go on social media, those kind of things. I really want to encourage you to turn off those distractions, really bring your attention to being here with us in the room. Now, one of the other ways we try to capture the intimacy is by having a small in-person audience. So I'd like to welcome these guys here. Thank you very much for being here and giving us your attention. I'd like to welcome Martin. Martin, we've known each other for a long time. I was thinking back to, we've known each other from Diamond Approach retreats and various things, and it's a real treat to have you here. And also, you were the teacher on the Challenge, which was really a great way of supporting people in establishing a kind of daily practice over 30 days. So many people watching this event may well have been there on the Challenge, but also joining us for this. So I'm going to hand over, and we're also going to have a chance to send in questions. So for those of you that have questions, you can post them below this video, and you'll see a kind of comment section. And you can also email in to alex@conscious2.com. For the last 20 minutes or so, I'll come out and I'll put those questions to Martin. But I want to welcome Martin. Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
I shall let you take it forward.
Sure. All right. Thanks, Alex. And welcome to those of you who are here in London to spend some time together meditating and exploring and looking at life together. Welcome to those of you at home who are also here to practice with us. And like Alex was encouraging, that sort of setting a tone, just to find a way to be here that's supportive. So just like we're sitting together here, finding a way that you can sit in a way that's comfortable, that you can have what you need around you, etc. And just taking these first couple of minutes, if you're not already set up like that, just to establish yourself in that way. So, the theme of the day, training the mind, freeing the heart. And just really looking at this, the primary resource of human life, right, which is being conscious, and the ways in which we can engage with consciousness. Really, for most people, we just take consciousness for granted. Consciousness is just this thing, this background in which our needs and our interests and our wishes and our compulsions are all driving us along. And yet, it's also the case that sometimes, and that's the case for us sitting here, or for everybody sitting at home, that we start to get interested beyond just the stuff that appears and that drives us around in consciousness. We start to get interested in consciousness itself, in the nature of consciousness. Now, what is this extraordinary, mysterious thing of being alive? We start to intuit that we can orientate our attention towards the fact of being conscious, that we can start to explore and discover and develop our consciousness, that we can start to really find out more about what this is, this being human. And so, that's really the thread and the theme of our afternoon together. And in thinking a little bit about how to structure that, I thought, well, if we're looking at consciousness, if we're working with meditation and with exploration and inquiry on how to be more aware of what this is, and sometimes I'll often use the word awareness when I'm really speaking about this engagement with consciousness, this lighting up of, this exploring of consciousness, then there are three aspects really to being more aware. And three aspects to training our minds, to freeing the heart, to living more fully and freely. And those three aspects I usually call contact, curiosity, and care. Contact, meaning our capacity and that we can train, and our deepening capacity to actually be in touch with our experience, track our experience, to really be where we are. And that's both the capacity to recognize when we're not, where we are, when we're caught up in some abstraction, when we're led away by some fantasy or some worry or some anxiety or whatever, and to keep coming back into contact, coming back to sensing ourselves being here, coming back to finding out what's actually happening right now. in body and heart and mind. And then also the second aspect of contact, the learning to actually stabilize our attention. So there's both the coming back and the coming back and the coming back into contact, which is a practice in itself, which we'll explore. And then the capacity to establish a contact, deepen a contact, to actually abide in contact with ourselves, which is, on the one hand, the most ordinary way to live a sane human life, and yet is really quite a rare and precious commodity that tragically many people, most people, never really develop. So, contact really is the ground of any transformational practice. And curiosity, the capacity to explore what we're in contact with, to find out about our usual habits of mind, to find out about how come I get caught in some fear, some defensiveness, some compulsion, etc. The capacity to explore and find out about and have insight to this heart and mind, this life I'm living. And then thirdly, the aspect of care. The capacity that we actually, the art, we might say, of learning to hold our experience gently, to stop being so harsh with ourselves. And it is an art. When we start to look carefully at our lives, we see how we can be harsh and demanding and really unpleasant to ourselves in our own inner life. And so that capacity to hold what's happening lightly, gently, forgivingly. So that's the thread of our afternoon together, and those of us who are here in London, or of your morning together, those of you who are maybe in the US or wherever you are. So, contact. And just in saying that, of course, it's an invitation in sitting here, just to let your attention just settle a little into the fact of sitting here, the feel of sitting here. Let yourself feel just the touch of your feet on the ground. Let yourself notice the way your hands are in your lap or on your knees or whatever. As you let your attention sense into these areas of your body, noticing if there is some tension, and if so, just seeing if that can soften. Feeling the rhythm and the sensations of your breath. And letting that sensing of your breath really be contactful, so that you're not concerned particularly with how your breath is, no need for it to be a certain way, but that you're kind of interiorizing your attention by just tracking the natural expansion of the in-breath, the natural relaxation of the out-breath. And the way the sensations of breathing may impact on the way your skin touches your clothes. And whether we're spending some time in formal meditation, like we will for some time, or whether we're interacting with some questions and some discussion together, or whether I'm just unpacking and explaining some of these themes, just seeing if this thread of being contactful can really run through our time together. Contactful, most primarily, like I was just explaining, body, the sensations, the sounds, the kind of immediate sensory nature of being here. The contact then, noticing if you get restless or confused or cold or hungry or whatever. Noticing just the impact of life. What does it do to you? How does consciousness respond? If you start to feel cold or hungry or whatever, does it become a whole drama in your mind? Oh, I'm so hungry. Oh, what's the matter with me? Etc., etc. Why am I hungry? I only ate 2 hours ago. Or, oh, I'm hungry. I'll stop this meditation and go and get something to eat. That's probably not going to happen for those of you in the room, but for those of you at home, there are all manner of temptations around you, right? And nobody else may be sitting there as a kind of support to stay steady. And so your support is your contactfulness, your willingness to sense into what's happening, and this liberating capacity when you notice the various things that hijack our attention, the hijack of some momentary compulsion, the hijack of some wandering thought, the hijack of just getting restless, just to see if, and this is the liberating nature, you can let that hijack go by. Our compulsions, when we're fixated on them, seem so seductive. Oh, I really want to go and do that thing. I really want to just follow that thought. And yet in the moment where we actually choose contactfulness rather than compulsion, there's a kind of relief, a liberation. Offering ourselves the gift, we might say, of being present with what's happening rather than being caught in our compulsions. Meditation, and formal meditation practice, is really the very heart of training ourselves to be contactful. And meditation, we might say, is the art, really, of doing nothing. The art of letting our compulsions go by, letting our distractions go by, letting our defenses go by. The art of that, both, as we'll see when we do some formal meditation in a little while, both the art of dropping those compulsions and coming back, dropping and coming back. And then, as I was saying just now, the art of actually letting our attention settle and stabilize. And, as well as meditation, the art of contact is really available to us in all these moments of life. I was walking through the centre of London yesterday with my wife and just noticing just how much pulls on the tendency for the compelled mind there is. Advertising, this, people, music and noise, interesting things in shop windows, etc. And of course, that's, partly a busy city centre is designed to pull on our senses. And it's not that there's anything wrong with our attention going in different directions. It's completely natural. It's actually part of the nature of consciousness, is that it engages, it follows, it's interested in. And yet, what tends to happen is that we can get so seduced by that pattern that we don't realize that it's not all our consciousness can do. We're so used to being compelled that then even in our quiet moments, the tendency isn't to come back to ourselves and settle, but actually to seek out some new compulsion, some distraction, etc. And so On the one hand, just walking yesterday, noticing, tension going here, tension going there, the pulls, the delights, etc. And yet at the same time, just that sense of some of the attention just staying here. The kind of the basic sanity, we might call it. Right? The certain peace of knowing where one is, of having one's attention contactful, feeling the sensation of the arms and legs moving, and just having some background sense of whatever's alive, temperature of the body, the responses or reactions that one's having walking around, etc. And the very helpful, I think, aspect of contact, like I say, when we have been pulled out by some engagement, by some busyness, by our work, by engagement with friends or family or whatever, very helpful to pay attention to the kind of the transition times when that busyness when that engagement finishes, right? The kind of activities that naturally pull on our attention finishes. What do you do? What do you do? Does the habit of being pulled keep on going, so that even though nothing naturally is pulling, we just seek out something new to pull on me? Oh, well, let me get out my phone and get pulled into that. Or let me seek out something else. Or if we're people that are interested in consciousness, do you actually make some time in that transition to come back to yourself? To find a sense of contactfulness, immediacy, ground, embodiment, presence. So, having spoken a little bit about contactfulness and opened it up a little, let's spend some time in meditation together and just emphasizing this capacity. So you may be already sitting in a suitable way, but if you need to adjust your posture and just kind of embodying the formality of meditation, letting your feet be kind of stable, flat on the ground if you're in a chair. Or if you're sitting cross-legged, just feeling that sense of contact with knees and legs. Letting yourself sit in a way that's kind of bright and upright. And just really acknowledging that you're here. Body is here. Experience is here. This sensory life is presenting itself right here. So just feeling the natural aliveness of that. The natural sensations of sitting here. The natural rhythm of breathing. And really bringing your intention to being contactful. For most of us, it's helpful to have a particular focus for your attention. And so see if you can feel the lowest place in your body where you can feel the movement of your breath. Maybe in your chest, maybe in your solar plexus, maybe that you can actually feel that going on right down into your belly. And just spending this 20 minutes or so of meditation and training in the art of being contactful. So the intention to let your awareness stay down here in the sensations of the breathing. And whenever you find that nevertheless your attention's got hijacked, not making a fuss or a drama out of that, just dropping it. Just re-establishing the contact. And like this then, we sit here, all of us, together. Not trying to make anything particular happen. Just being in contact with whatever is happening. Sensing your experience from the inside. Letting this contactfulness be primary in your awareness, whatever else is happening. So thoughts can just go by. So that the sounds in the room can just pass through. So that when you notice some tension pattern that's formed, or some thought stream that you may have become seduced by, that then that noticing isn't some failure of your practice, that actually that noticing is being contactful. Seeing what's happening and choosing presence. Contact. Awareness. Training the art of being right here, where you are. Noticing where your attention is right now. If your attention's grounded in your immediate experience, then really noticing that. Letting the settling happen. Really allowing and appreciating a stable attention, a calm abiding. And if that's not what's happening, if you're noticing the flickering of thoughts, the pulls in different directions, or if you're noticing some dullness or restlessness of mind, then just seeing if you can notice that in a contactful way, including it in your practice rather than judging it, making it into something wrong. So that whatever happens, whatever's heard or felt or imagined, there's no wrong experience. Everything appears within this context of being here, being present, being available to life's unfolding. Just like this. Our usual habit is to be caught up in the content of mind. What I want, what I think, where I'm going, what I like or don't like. But in meditation, we're leaving the content alone. We're not trying to stop it. We're not judging it. We're just letting it happen by itself. Letting the content of thoughts and sounds and sensations just have their free unfolding. Emphasizing contact rather than content. Presence of mind rather than the productions of mind. And so for these last few minutes of sitting together, just staying steady with the intention to stay, to feel, to inhabit the immediacy of your experience. Moment by moment, breath by breath. And when I ring the bell to end the meditation, even though the formality of meditation ends, the continuity of awareness remains. And so you may open your eyes, you may adjust your posture, you may include more of the sensory realm as you include seeing or movement. But just seeing if you can maintain this thread of contactfulness. Grounding your attention in your ongoing immediate experience. It's kind of deceptively simple. On the one hand, it's really the baseline of meditation. Establishing contact, training ourselves in contact, keep coming back into contact. And yet it's also deceptively simple. We can easily think, oh, well, yeah, okay, I know what being in touch with breath is, or I know what being in touch with body is, but so what? I want, some kind of cosmic experience. I want to feel great oneness, or great peace, or great bliss, or great openness. Right? All of which are beautiful. And yet, we don't do those things. You don't turn on great oneness or great bliss, right? And actually, we're not responsible for that stuff. What we're responsible for, what we can be responsible for, is being in contact in a kind of sincere way, in a steady way, in as full a way as we're able. And it's out of that contactfulness that some of the beautiful or deep or liberating experiences of our practice spring forth. And it can seem, and it's generally the case when we start a meditation practice or some other awareness practice, basically, it can seem like, oh, but my normal tendency is so much to go here and go there, and that seems easy and comfortable and familiar in some way. But that it's kind of hard work to be present. Because our habit of mind is so much to keep bouncing off, that it's like we're having to kind of haul our minds back. Oh no, try to be present, try to focus on the breath, try to feel the body. Okay, yes, and then boing, and then gone again. And when that's our experience, the idea of being constantly present seems like it would be constant hard work then. As if I'd have to be kind of reining my attention in and not letting it go to any of the fun or interesting places where it can sometimes go. But actually, as our practice continues, what we really notice is that what's really hard work isn't being present. We start to notice that there's a certain tension implicated in every time we're caught up with some fantasy, some commentary, some anxiety, or whatever it might be. And that actually, when I drop that, and when I let that relax and resolve, it's much less hard work, actually, to be here, to have a certain containment, a certain integrity with oneself, a certain ease, a certain sensitivity towards what's here. And that's a really important and significant sea change. From the initial sense, being present is hard work, to seeing how actually it's the fixations and productions of mind that take a lot of energy. And that's the beginning of when we start to find presence, contactfulness, as something natural, as a certain rest for consciousness, a certain refuge for consciousness. So, what did you notice? What did you notice in the meditation? Where do you habitually notice your attention going? Where are you at these days in your practice? And these are equally questions for you at home to consider as well. Where are you at with that sense of contact? How much does the contactfulness that you're interested in, right, by virtue of being involved in these kind of practices, how much does that contactfulness really get supported in your life? Or how much does it get given away or lost in the midst of the thises and that and the details and dramas that get hold of you? What are the conditions or the situations where you orientate towards contactfulness? And what are the situations or conditions in which you find yourself sort of propelled in the other direction? Marie, please.
I was doing the focus on the breath within the belly, and for me, anytime I meditate, I decide one focus, and then I'm caught up with sensation in my body.
Right.
And then so today it was tension here, and so then my mind kind of wonder which is a priority, and
Right.
I kind of lose focus.
Yeah.
Because if I keep going on the focus within the belly, then I'm not comfortable either.
Yeah.
So I don't know, my mind is kind of jumping, and I don't know the priority anymore of which practice I should carry on doing.
Yeah. So I would say, like you say, you can easily feel split, right? I'm going to practice presence. Martin just said something about feeling the rhythm and movement of breath. I'm going to do that. And yet then something else happens, right? There's tension in the shoulders, etc. So then you're caught between the two, and easily bouncing around between the two, and then engenders some doubt. Am I doing it right, etc., etc. So it's interesting, the baseline practice of contact in the way the Buddha spoke about it. He talks about using the breath as a contact, and that practice is called awareness of breathing, or mindfulness of breathing. Because we so easily fixate on content rather than contact, like I was saying during the meditation, what we hear when we hear that practice, awareness of breathing, the bit that stands out to us tends to be breathing, right? Awareness of breathing, right? As if it should all be about the breathing then, as if all the rest of my experience is irrelevant or should disappear, and as if success in meditation would just be, oh, wow, breath, right? But actually, the most important thing I would say isn't the object or the content, right? Breathing, it's the contact. So rather than it being a practice of awareness of breathing, it's actually a practice of awareness of breathing. So we use a point of contact, in this point, breath, right, to establish contactfulness. In doing that, if you notice something significant happening in your experience, that which is happening in your experience is worthy of contact. And we'll pick that up more when we start to talk about curiosity in a little while, right? So not just to be in contact with, there's discomfort or pressure in my shoulders, but then to start to find out, well, how come? What kind of discomfort? Or what am I doing with that discomfort? Am I able to track it and find out about it? Or am I reacting to it, shutting down around it, etc.? So in terms of this bit, the contact bit, let your attention go where it's called, right? But we want to establish some stability. So if it's called in a vague way, it's called here, it's called there, it's called there, then you'll just be running around after content. So establish something helpful. The sensations of sitting, the movement of breathing, just the basic aliveness of the body. Any of those might be a point of contact. If something significant draws your attention, then let that be included in the contactfulness, the feeling of the shoulders. Right? That, I would say, is the difference. If your attention's being called in a vague, disparate way, use a one-pointed focus. But if it's being called to something significant, let yourself feel your way into that. Open up to that. Does that make sense when I say it like that?
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, okay. Yes, please.
So you asked about where we were in our practice, and I would definitely say that I'm at a point of feeling incredible struggle with being aware and in contact, as opposed to wanting to dart off here, there and everywhere. And I wanted to just sort of preface my question with that, because I just wanted you to comment a little bit on the particular times that I think and certainly I'm sure a lot of people want to run off to some kind of distraction. Yeah. So if you're going through a particular painful experience or experience particular painful thoughts about something in a particular day or week or month or year, you know, when the draw is so strong, and you're really desperate to run away from something painful. Particularly in the context of coming back to the sort of contact, particularly a struggle as well. So kind of being, I guess, a bit reticent to use that practice, and not having the motivation or the courage maybe to use that kind of practice. Yeah.
Well, there's times when it's really helpful to be very firm with oneself, right? That's the compulsion, but I'm going to stay. So I want to preface my answer by saying that there's times when that's helpful and important and has a real potency to it. And yet there are many times, more often I would say, where we feel like you can't fight with your compulsions. You've already got whatever this theme is in your life that feels very difficult. And then if you start fighting with the tendency, you add a whole other layer of blame and judgment and struggle and conflict. So, if you feel, I can't face this, I want to run away from this. This might sound like I'm fudging it, but I'm not. It's real. You run away at least contactfully. What I mean by that is you call it what it is. I can't face this. I want to absorb my attention into something else. This is too painfulness to face. And it might be actually in little ways. I get home, I got some ideas about being present, but I'm feeling tired and I'm feeling restless, and what I really want to do is just watch TV. Now we could say, well, watching TV isn't very contactful, right? But you can be contactful with your process. You can let yourself. I was actually doing this the other day, watching TV, and I was really noticing how much I was enjoying watching the TV, and how much there's a kind of like, a kind of that end of the day feeling, like, and just then the reflection of that the contactfulness was really intact, right? And it was actually noticing, watching TV was really supportive in that moment. I could have had all kinds of ideas about, well, real contactfulness would be just to meditate at the end of the day. But meditation totally wasn't where I was at. I'd been chopping wood and working hard all day, body was aching, and there was a kind of, TV, letting the TV do the work, right, of holding the attention, and yet not just giving myself away to that. So there can be a certain, what you're calling running away, wanting some relief from a difficult situation or a painful habit pattern or whatever it is. And yet your contactfulness, your willingness to be with yourself can actually accompany that. And that accompaniment of yourself is really helpful. Helpful because you're not adding on that layer of conflict, and helpful because you're still actually around to learn from what you're doing. And then you're able to see, well, how much do I need to run away? Well, I at least need to distract myself in this or that way. Okay, but then what does the distraction do for me? Right? So, with whatever theme you've got in mind in your life, how does that sound to you when I speak about what you're calling running away, but accompanying yourself in that. So use the mic.
It's very reassuring,
Uh-huh.
I guess, in some way, and particularly the level of blame that you said, adds a whole nother layer of complexity and difficultness to whatever's going on. I certainly recognise that,
Yeah.
and I think there's a lot of kind of stripping away of life, or restriction and rules around meditation, and kind of trying to be strict with yourself, and you must be vegetarian, and you must all the rules we know.
You
must
get
sit.
up at
You
5
must.
o'clock in
You
the
must get
morning
up at 5
to
o'clock in the
sit.
morning. You must sit for
Yeah.
at least 45 minutes a day. You
Yeah.
must sit on just one cushion. You must, etc., etc.
Wow. No wonder you want to run away from your practice.
Yeah. Well, but I'm sure you've come across it as well. There are
Yeah.
different theories and there are different teachers, and
Yeah.
it can seem like a minefield in itself, but also it's a big stick to beat yourself up with sometimes.
Yeah, exactly.
And therefore, I think sometimes you lack motivation to go with it, because it's a complicated thing in itself. Sometimes
So
it can be
watch
made
yourself.
complicated.
So watch yourself escaping, if you like, and then ironically, it's not so much of an escape, because wherever your mind's going, you're going with it. So you're being contactful in that way, and because you're not then giving yourself a hard time and making your practice into a stick to beat yourself with, like you say. Actually, in that process, there becomes more room for what I was speaking about earlier, that kind of capacity to just be very steady and clear with oneself, right? Oh no, I really value training my mind, so I want to sit. And you can start to separate out the kind of inner rigidity of I've got to sit with only one cushion. Well, who said anything about that? Or I've got to sit at a certain time of day, or I've got to sit for a certain amount of time. And all the things that make your practice feel narrow, right? Oh no, what I'm really interested in is being contactful. Contactfulness doesn't diminish with the number of cushions that you have. Right?
Contact with the floor, that's it.
Right. So so that sense of being gentle with yourself, and again we'll speak about this part later on, the care. Being gentle in accompanying yourself just will open up a lot more possibility.
Thank you.
Okay. So maybe as a general contemplation to as we come to the end of this little piece, and we can write this up on the screen for those of you at home, and we'll just give the next 5 minutes or so just to really considering what's something that you can do that would really support you in being more contactful. What's something that would really support you in being more contactful? And it may be that there's one thing that you know, like, the regularity of a formal meditation practice. Or it may be as you ask yourself that question, you contemplate it, right, that there are several things that come to mind. So rather than, like we were just hearing, rather than establishing some kind of rigid thing, if I sat for this amount of time at this time of day, especially if that's something that you've already set up as a goal with and kind of lost or missed many times. Well, let your contemplation be to feel for something that's realistic. Something that might ask you to step up, if you like, but in a way that's not just some sort of impossible ideal. In the conditions of your life, in the conditions of your practice, what's something that would really support you in being more contactful with your experience? So 5 minutes or so to contemplate in this way.
Is that all okay, Nick?
I'm speaking now, yeah. Okay, so some time just to reflect a little inwardly, those of us here and those of you reflecting at home. And when in speaking next about curiosity, the second aspect, and you know, really these three themes, I haven't really just made them up. I mean, I like the fact that they form a mnemonic, right? I often speak about them as the 3 C's: contact, curiosity, and care. But they're both the 3 principal components, you might say, of meditation practice. But they're also 3 inherent aspects of the way awareness is. Awareness is inherently contactful. I mean, all our experience, it is experience because it arises in awareness. You can't have an experience that has no awareness to it, right? When awareness is completely gone, no experience can be registered. So awareness is contactful. Awareness is that which makes room for life, which receives life, which reveals life to us. Awareness is the ground of all experience. So we're not. On the one hand, we can say we're practicing to cultivate awareness, to cultivate contactfulness. But we can equally say we're practicing just to wake up to the inherently contactful nature of awareness. Similarly, awareness is curious. Fundamentally, the fact of being conscious, the fact of being alive, has a certain drive to it. The drive to want to know what this is. And traditionally, what most people do with the drive to want to know what this is, this human life, traditionally most people tend to settle for answers, right? So we might settle for scientific answers to what life is, or we might settle for religious answers to what life is. We might settle for some kind of creation mythology that tells us our place in the universe and how the world was created and how human beings were created, and gives us a sense of our place and meaning in life. Or we may settle for some kind of rejection of a religious answer or belief, and sort of shut down our curiosity in that way. But a genuine curiosity, spiritual curiosity, a transformational curiosity, is one that, on the other hand, on one hand, recognizes this inherent drive to want to know what this mysterious being human is. And on the other hand, won't just settle for an answer. An answer is a dead thing. An answer has no more possibility in it. An answer is a dead end. But the question, right, what is this? What is this? What is this being human? What is this consciousness? What is happening right now? A question is a very alive thing. A question opens. A question explores. A question reveals. So the heart of curiosity is what Rilke famously called living into one's questions. Being willing to ask, being willing to explore, being willing to find out. and being more interested in the inward leading nature of questioning than one is interested in just finding an answer. And maybe that sounds nice, maybe that sounds inspiring. Actually, though, it can be quite uncomfortable. There's something in us that would really like to just have the answer, have an answer, have things be neat and contained. There's something in us which is quite provoked or confronted by uncertainty. And yet life is very uncertain. As the famous Zen reflection says, life is most uncertain. Death is most certain. The time of death is most uncertain. What should I do? Uncertainty is uncomfortable. Life is very uncertain. And here we are, invited just by virtue of having been born in these mysterious circumstances, invited to participate in this uncertain life, to explore this mysterious being alive, to inquire into, to find out about being human, being conscious, having a mind and a heart and a body, without actually getting to anything as narrow or as fixed or as rigid or as dead as an answer. And I find that very inspiring, And in the course of teaching in various places around the world, when people ask me, so what is, and I'm teaching about and using the words of consciousness and awareness and mind very much. So when someone asks me, so what is awareness exactly? I'm quite inspired by the fact that I haven't got a good answer for them. I'm quite inspired actually by the fact that nobody ever, as far as I know, has ever had a really good answer to that question, including the great mystics and saints and sages of history. I've never come across any kind of satisfactory answer to that question. What is awareness? What is consciousness? What is life? So on the one hand, it's uncomfortable and disorientating to put aside our hope for a truth, an answer, a resolution. On the other hand, though, it's enlivening, it's vivifying, it stimulates it stimulates qualities of wonder. It's pretty extraordinary to find ourselves in this human life. We can't remember it beginning. Again, we can have answers, we can have ideas, right, about our time and place of birth and our family of origin and whatever stories in our family give us our sense and whatever our first memory is, etc. But our life, in the experiencing of it, is beginningless. And you can't remember it beginning, and you've no idea about its end point. Right? Beginningless life, endless life. So it defies our usual sense of time. And I would say actually it defies our usual sense of space as well. Like just spatially, where does your life, there's something to be curious about, where does your life end spatially? Where are the edges of your life? Where do you begin and end? And again, ordinary common sense can have plenty of ideas about that, right? And usually say, I end, at this kind of the flesh-shaped boundary of body. But if we don't just take common sense, actually if we're interested in the rather uncommon sense of genuine inquiry, like when we were sitting in meditation just now, when you sit and are really contactful with your experience, When you just listen to the sounds in the room right now, can you really tell where the sound ends and where your hearing of the sound begins? When you just sense the physical sensory aliveness of sitting here, in your direct experience, can you really feel where you end and the world begins? Or is there actually a kind of extraordinary interpenetrating intimacy with all of this? Maybe we're closer to life, more implicated in life, more intimate with life, more part of life than our common sense tells us. So the spirit of curiosity is one that invites us to put aside actually our common sense, or what we might more easily call our inherited ideas and answers. Our inherited ideas about life and the universe and etc., and the origins of things and our stories, scientific stories or religious stories, asks us to put aside our answers and ideas about who I think I am. Martin, male, 45 years old, etc., etc., etc. And even though we don't walk around reminding ourselves of that, oh, I'm Martin, I'm this, you know, how easily those things are so taken for granted that we nevertheless meet life as if that's somehow some kind of answer, some kind of complete description, as if the whole mystery, this time-transcending, space-transcending mystery of being here can be explained away by name and form and history and description. And of course, name and form and history and description are important. And yet, their greatest importance isn't in just a relying on the familiar story of that. Their greatest importance is as a source for or a focus for our curiosity. Curiosity, then, is based on contact. When I use the word curiosity, I'm not speaking about the kind of idle curiosity or a purely intellectual curiosity. Oh, I wonder what I am then beyond name and form. That'll just lead you into the spaghetti of wild thoughts. And a curiosity that's based on contact is a sensing into. It has a certain patience to it, a certain willingness not to settle for answers, a certain thrill, actually. The thrill of being able to find out directly what this is. Curiosity also is open-ended. Right? We find, oh, it's like this. And then, oh, it's like this. Curiosity is ever new in what it discovers. So that yesterday's insight is actually already stale in a way. And rather than relying on what I've previously found out, what I'm most interested in is how it is here, now, this moment, these circumstances, the way life is presenting itself right now. On the one hand, our curiosity certainly can lead us to these kind of grand and deep themes of life. The nature of consciousness, the nature of thought, the nature of self, the nature of time and space. And at the same time, our curiosity is actually very ordinary, very immediate, very contactful, very grounded in body and mind and heart and world as they are. In other words, our curiosity really starts right here. What's happening now? So based on this thread of contact that you're maintaining, right, as the baseline of your practice, just letting yourself let in that question right now. What's happening here? Right? Let that be a contactful question. What's happening in your body right now? One very, very useful, very simple, but very useful way to address our curiosity to our experience, just in terms of relaxation or tension. So just letting yourself kind of feel in your body, where is there relaxation? And where is there tension? The direction of relaxation is one that actually leads in that direction of an openness to life, an intimacy with life, a harmony with life, a non-resistance to life. Whereas tension is a movement that actually leads towards me feeling more separate, more bound in time and bound in space and bound by my sense of self. One of my teachers once said to me, a relaxed body is a liberated body. And at the time I heard it, I thought, really? That's a bit simplistic. And yet, I've really come to appreciate the truth and the depth of that statement. Because what we find out about our experience is that which allows us to let go of the ways we hold on to our familiar stories, our familiar understanding, our familiar habits. So, as we spend a little time in the formality of meditation, let's just take that as our starting point, right? What's happening here? And to be asking that in such a way that just senses into relaxation or tension. So, setting yourself up in a way that's conducive to the formality of meditation. Letting your feet be steady and flat. Letting your posture be bright and upright. Helpful also just to let your shoulders and chest be open. And also just to let your belly be soft. Abiding here in this contactful way with your experience. Breath and body. Sounds and sensations. The natural flickering of ideas and images passing by. And as you sense your breath, just seeing whether the movement and sensations of breathing feel like they're happening effortlessly, naturally, in a relaxed way, or whether there's some tension, some holding in your throat maybe, or your chest or your belly. And if you find some tension, just being gently curious about it. Not curious to find an answer, but just curious to find out from the inside. Letting yourself find out, do you need to hold that tension? Or can it soften and relax? Sensing just into your shoulders and arms, and the way they're lying in your lap or on your knees. And just being curious to feel the relaxation in your hands and arms, or any tension that may be there. If there's relaxation, really let yourself find out about it. Feeling the quality of ease, of rest, of undefendedness in that muscular relaxation. Or, if there's some tension there, letting yourself be curious. Finding out about it from the inside. Bring your attention into your face. Just finding out what's happening there. The muscles around your eyes, your forehead, your jaw. If there's relaxation, really letting yourself feel into and find out about that. The qualities of ease, of trust, of allowing that are expressed in that relaxation. Or if there's some tension, finding out about that. It's a very common place for us to hold a certain posture of resistance, particularly the jaw or around the eyes. Seeing what happens if you're able to just soften any tensions you find. If you can let your jaw soften, let your eyes relax. If you find an area of tension and you let it relax, staying curious. Does the relaxation endure? Does it change your state? Does the habit energy of the tension re-establish itself and your jaw retighten? Finding out about your experience in real time. Finding out about your experience not through the idea or the story, but from the inside. Contactful and curious. And then also just noticing your state of mind right now. Just being curious to find out what shape your mind state is. Maybe peaceful or agitated, bright or tired, clear or confused, or any number of other states. We get so identified with our states. I'm tired, or I'm confused, or I'm peaceful. But actually our states of mind are brief, fluid, always changing. Seeing if your curiosity can let you hold the state of mind that's here right now, simply, lightly, so that it doesn't have to define who you are. And when the bell rings and the formality of meditation ends, seeing if the thread of your practice, the contactfulness, the curiosity can remain. So curiosity too is an art. Right? Like we were saying earlier, the art of suspending our what we think we already know, which keeps us bound by the familiar stories. And so just a chance, be interested, I'd like to hear from you who are sitting here, you who are here also as the voice piece, if you like, for those who are at home. What does your curiosity reveal in your practice? I mean, in the sitting here now, or in general. What supports you in kind of opening up your curiosity? What situations or conditions tend to shut down your curiosity? Some of us seem to have a kind of natural tendency, more strongly than others, to really hold to a hoped-for kind of certainty. And some of us can kind of go the other way and sort of reject certainty. And in some ways we might say we're kind of thriving on uncertainty, and actually there's a draw to a kind of to a sort of chaos and instability that goes with that. So the opportunity just to reflect a little and see what's alive for you, what serves your curiosity, what shuts it down. What did you notice in the meditation in terms of just inquiring into where you get tense, where you relax, where your mind is or goes. Yeah, the mic's just here.
Yeah, for me, my mind was really thinking a lot, because as soon as I start to be curious, then the mind just came in and was like blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
And I literally couldn't focus about anything except when I had some shaking in my body, the whole body. But if I start inquiring my face, like stories just came up instantly. So I actually couldn't really get curious.
So
just
the
as a question.
Yeah. So the curiosity, it sounds like for you, is very gets easily associated with a lot of thinking. That's sort of intellectual curiosity. Well, what does this mean? Well, what's happening now? Is it like this? Is it like that?
Yeah, I think I might kind of get lazy about being really curious about the sensation and kind of get caught on something else. And it's difficult to come back, because then when I come back, I guess I need to settle down again and just be curious after it. But I tend to just be curious instantly and go back to the story. And so it's kind of,
Yeah. So that's why it's important, like we were saying, that the curiosity is based on the contactfulness, right? And on the one hand, these qualities are inherent nature aspects of awareness, like I was saying earlier. On the other hand, because just the way the way we're doing things, we're unpacking them one after the other. So it can seem like, okay, well, contactfulness, that's just the basic stuff. Now, or curiosity, that's the next bit. But actually, a skillful way of practicing is just seeing, what's workable with the conditions as they are. So if mind is very active, right? If mind is very caught up in a lot of thinking and busyness, then actually curiosity may end up just stimulating that more. So if you notice that you're kind of busy and activated, just to emphasize the contactfulness might be more helpful, at least for a while, so that then based on the contactfulness, like you were saying earlier, right? Just contact with what's happening. Start to notice then the tension patterns that you were feeling in your shoulders, and then, what's this? Right? Not what's this, it must be this, it must be that, but just a kind of what's this that listens to the silence that follows the question. What's this? Sometimes I call it kinesthetic curiosity. So that, again, there's that sense of leading with the experience, and then the thinking about it, the making sense of it, the describing it to ourselves, which is an important part of it, but that it's secondary. If we lead with the thinking, we're just caught up in the stories about it. So lead with the feeling, the experience, and let then the sense making, the describing follow.
Yeah, I guess I kind of switch and not include. So right. I'm in contact, then I switch in curiosity.
Yeah.
So I kind of lose the ground of experience.
Yeah.
But it's really enigmatic for me to
right.
actually including rather than switching. I don't really know how to. Yeah.
Well, it's a practice, right?
Yeah.
But that's the way you language it like that is important. I mean, that sounds like a really good insight to me. Noticing that you switch rather than include, right? So now when you see that that's what you're doing, that's where you have the possibility to start to do it differently. Right?
Thank you.
Yeah, because you're recognizing now, that that there's something of including rather than switching. So when you catch yourself switching, just to see how might you do that differently. Yeah. It's, we're trained, our education, our upbringing generally, the way we get stimulated, we develop a curiosity that's more kind of intellectual or linguistic or explanatory. We develop explanatory curiosity, and it's very, very helpful for a lot of things. But a kind of what we were calling spiritual curiosity, it's a different kind of development. It's what you're beautifully calling it's an inclusive with the contact with immediate experience, rather than switching back into just that thinking about mode. Yeah. Okay. Good.
Okay. Thank you.
What else? Yeah, Sarah.
In the experience of the curiosity, just noticing there's kind of a sense of standing on the edge of something, like a very open, kind of exciting, like a childlike curiosity, and it's just what I noticed, and then the mind could slip back into a story about, no, that's this, that's that, or something that it considers to know already be known. And so in my experience just now, there was kind of a jumping between those two of going back into the story, and then the recognizing that curiosity's been lost because the story's risen. And but then going back into the curiosity and seeing something so familiar as if seeing it for the first time. Yeah. And in that there's a sense of a kind of simple joy, like which felt very open. But that was my
beautiful.
experience.
And both things, right? Both the truth of that, that like having one's eyes cleansed, seeing something for the first time, the simple joy, the immediacy, the aliveness of that which we've taken to be familiar, which becomes dulled. Just a breath, or just the experience of sitting, or just the kind of amazing, freely unfolding symphony of sound of traffic, sound of birds, sound of anything. Like the fact that there's anything at all manifest in the universe is a completely amazing miracle, right? When we look at it with that freshness. And so that's available to us through the practice of curiosity, we might say. And yet at the same time, there's our practice is one of inviting that, and then noticing the way mind, by its habit energy, will go back to the familiar, back to what I think I know. And even those beautiful experiences of what you just called the simple joy of seeing, how easily it becomes, that becomes a story. Oh yes, I know something about the simple joy of blah, 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 blah. And then, our habit makes that even stale. Yeah.
So
okay.
There might be a question more relating to contact than curiosity, perhaps, but that the fact that that's available to us in every moment. The biggest challenge for me is spending a day in the office. Mm-hmm. I feel like from 9 to 5, I have not been in touch with contact whatsoever. The moment I leave the office, I feel my feet on the floor for the first time again. Yeah. And so when that mind's being pulled into telephone calls and Excel sheets, etc., that's when I find it most difficult to actually stay embodied. And I don't know if you could.
Well, partly inevitably, right? The more abstracted the content is, the less embodied you'll be, right? So if you're just going for a walk, right, and nothing particular, there's no particular dangers around, you're not talking to anybody, you're just going for a quiet walk, then all your attention can really drop into your body. But if you're going for a walk and there's busy traffic and you're talking to your friend and you're eating a packet of crisps while you're going along, then your attention's more abstracted. You just won't be so much in touch, right? So if we're just sitting in a chair here, the attention can really drop in. But if you're actually writing an email or trying to figure something out, of course your attention is abstracted to a certain extent. So there's two parts to that, I would say. One is the contact, the basic contact practice of, even though you're abstracted, not expecting the embodiment to feel like it will in a simpler moment, because it never will, and yet nevertheless finding out how some of your attention can always be, a kind of baseline of your attention can always stay attuned, so that you notice when you're not just figuring out, but you're also starting to hunch your shoulders and knit your brows and retain your in-breath, and the sort of symptoms of basically, so that there can just be a softening of that. And then the other part, like we were saying, when the more abstracted activity ends, actually letting your attention, or inviting your attention to drop back or fall back or sort of rest back into a more fully embodied contact.
Thank you.
Okay. So, just to open up the contemplation around curiosity in the same way. And I wrote it down exactly as how I wanted to ask it. Let's see. What is an unhelpful habit you get stuck in that you would like to be more curious about? What is an unhelpful habit you get stuck in that you would like to be more curious about? And as you contemplate, don't let yourself be overwhelmed with a great long list of unhelpful habits that you think you might have, right? Because that won't stimulate curiosity. It'll stimulate kind of overwhelm or discouragement or something. So just find one, right, in your life. So it's not finding an unhelpful habit to blame yourself for or judge yourself for. But in seeing, there's this I get caught in, this pattern of behavior, or this pattern of thought, or this kind of reaction I have to my family or my lover or whatever. And how might I be more curious about that? What am I curious about in that? Often when we have some habitual reaction, we're not curious about our reaction. We're just full of, thinking we know how it is. Oh, you're so intolerant. You're so intolerant, one says intolerantly, or whatever. Right? And so, what might be a habit, a pattern, a situation that repeats itself in your life that you could be more curious as to what you're doing? More curious about how you're feeling. More curious about what you do in that moment of the reaction. What's your body doing? What is the state of mind that gives rise to that reaction? What might you be hoping for? What might you be trying to not see? Etc. So there's a few minutes just to kind of to consider, to reflect, to explore, to be curious about that as we end this kind of segment. And the question will come up on the screen for those of you at home, just for the next few minutes. What's an unhelpful habit you get stuck in that you would like to be more curious about? Okay. Okay. So I hope reflecting in that way was fruitful, useful for you. And and so we'll pass on to look at this third element of meditative life, and this third transformational aspect, but also, as I said earlier, this third intrinsic aspect of awareness. And actually, before I start to speak about care and to explore it together, just a reminder to those of you who are watching at home that at the end of this segment, there'll be 20 minutes or so where there's room for questions that you may have on any of the areas we've covered. So you can just type those questions anytime from now, just below the video. And then Alex will come back on at the end and we'll read some of your questions. So there's a chance to explore things that are interesting to you. So please feel free to use that. So, awareness, like I say, fundamentally contactful, allowing and revealing experience, fundamentally curious in that knowing and exploring what's happening. And awareness is fundamentally caring. Awareness holds experience. Our consciousness doesn't reject what appears. It doesn't refuse to let in sights or sounds or feelings. Fundamentally, consciousness itself is an open embrace to whatever arises. And yet, in the way that our consciousness is filtered through our self-image, that care, that embrace, that allowing of, that making room for the whole realm of experience gets kind of disrupted by the distortions, if you like, of our self-sense. Until we find that rather tragically, care is a quality that's in terribly short supply in our own hearts and minds, usually. We know what caring is, and there are certain situations or certain people, or for some of us not so much people, but maybe animals, or some beings that very naturally and easily and effortlessly elicit our care. We all know what it is to care, to love, to respond, to act in ways that are kind, generous, forgiving. And we love it. I mean, when I just say those words, kind, generous, forgiving, we all can find the cellular memory of a generous heart, a caring heart, a kind heart, a gentle heart, a forgiving heart. And it's like those qualities are like a balm to the heart. Our being is soothed and quietened and gladdened and liberated by being kind, by being forgiving. It's qualities we long to find in the world. We're kind of hoping, wishing that people will be gentle to us, kind to us, hoping that we'll be cared for, loved, nurtured. So on the one hand, we're kind of longing for care. On the other hand, we know what it is to be caring. And despite those two, despite the fact that we just want to be cared for, and despite the fact that we know how to care, and we know how beautiful it is to care, And it's kind of tragic, this. Despite both those things, you'd think that would be enough, right? I want to be cared for, and I know how to care, and I know it feels really good to care. Despite that, we get into all kinds of painful ways of not caring. We get into all kinds of painful ways of putting people out of our hearts, of getting caught in a kind of painful loop of blame, judgment, fear. And the place where the the lack of care tends to show up most strongly, most painfully, is in terms of the way that care gets expressed towards ourselves, towards our own experience. It's rather shocking for us to see how harsh we can be towards our own minds, towards our own bodies, towards just the naturalness of experience, shutting it down, overlaying it with all kinds of ideas about how it should be or could be different, how I should be or could be different. And that shows up in all kinds of areas of our lives. It shows up in our relationships. Of course, how you could be or should be different shows up very much in our relationships too. It shows up in our meditation practice. And maybe just in the course of sitting here this afternoon. Maybe just in the course of participating at home in the way you have been. I wonder how many times, just in these last few hours, the idea has arisen, I shouldn't be doing it like this. I should be more awake, or I should be more concentrated, or I should have a better question to ask, or I should be able to concentrate more, or something. What my friend, one of my friends calls shoulding all over yourself. Right? The painful way we should on ourselves. Right? And the way that shoulding is a withdrawal of care. The way it has a harshness to it, an intolerance to it. So this aspect of practice, right, learning the art of caring for ourselves, caring for our experience, letting things be the way they are. Or, expressed differently, this aspect of practice of attuning to or uncovering the natural care of human consciousness, the natural care of being alive, the natural care of having a heart. It's, well, on the one hand, it's really sorely needed. It's sorely needed in our world. It's sorely needed for each one of us. And also, unless we really attend to the practice of caring, unless we learn the art of being able to be gentle, kind with ourselves, with our experience, with our practice, then you just can't sustain a practice like meditation or any real transformational practice. You just can't sustain it for very long without really attending to the art of caring. It's just too much of a drag. It's just too much hard work to try and be contactful and try and be curious and try and be contactful and try and be curious, when behind that there's so much self-judgment or self-blame or kind of driving oneself on. Blaming yourself for the way your practice is, driving yourself towards how you think your practice should be. And that kind of just eats away at us. It's too unpleasant to be exposed to our own inner harshness while we're opening up, being contactful, being curious, opening up to our experience. But what you open up to is just the unpleasantness, the harshness of that inner voice. It's as if somebody woke you up in the morning, you know, if you sleep and somebody woke you up with, "What's the matter with you? Why are you still asleep? Why don't you get out of bed? You're such a lazy ass. Come on, you still..." You know, what kind of encouragement would that be to actually wake up and get up? It's like, leave me alone. You can cover yourself with the blanket again. And that's often what it is like. That's certainly what it was like for me when I started to practice. The shock of waking up to the kind of inner climate of my own non-care for myself, of my own cruelty towards my inner life. I remember coming home meaning to a hut that I was renting in a little town in the mountains in India, but coming home to this hut from a meditation retreat I'd been attending. And I was so inspired, I was so glad to have been on retreat, and I really wanted to just be mindful all the time. And I walked home and I was kind of, being mindful of the walking and feeling so grateful for having discovered this meditation practice, etc. And then I got back to my hut and I got my key out to undo the padlock, and I was just sort of the key didn't go in well, and I was fumbling with the, and then I just noticed myself saying, "What's the matter with you? If you were really mindful, you wouldn't fumble with the key in the lock. You're such a stupid..." I was like, and the shock in that moment of just seeing that intolerance towards myself. We tend to address ourselves or attend to our own experience in a way we never would dream of with anybody else. Your friends would desert you if you spoke to them in the ways that unfortunately we reserve for just speaking to ourselves. So our practice is an invitation to learn the art of care. And on the one hand, that's very beautiful, right? Learning to be gentler with ourselves, more inviting of ourselves, more allowing of ourselves. And yet, on the other hand, it's generally a kind of tender or painful process, because that learning the art of care inevitably passes through the terrain of waking up to the ways in which we can be uncaring, the ways in which we can be harsh, intolerant, cruel. Some of us notice more easily our self-judgment, right? Oh, I'm so unconcentrated, or I get so angry, or I'm so, whatever, the self-critical tendency. Some of us more easily notice our criticism of others. Right? Oh, he's so, or she's so, you're so, etc., etc. But it's actually the same process. So even if what we notice is how we can be critical outwardly, if you really explore or examine that process, one is always being critical of others in comparison to me. So it doesn't really matter whether it's going inward or whether it's going outward. It's still all about me. And similarly, it doesn't really matter. Some of us have the tendency to notice more the sort of deflationary putting ourselves down. Some of us tend to notice more the other side. Right? It's less common, but for some people, the main flavor of self-evaluation isn't so much self-criticism, it's more self-aggrandizement. Oh, well, I've got this stuff figured out. Right? I know what's the matter with these stupid guys? It's obvious contact curiosity. I can do that. Right? And we try to bolster our sense of ourselves in a kind of self-inflationary way. And again, it doesn't really matter whether we're putting ourselves down or building ourselves up. If we look closely at the heart of that, there's a kind of a fear, insecurity, and even in that self-aggrandizement, it feels kind of hollow. It's like a balloon. We feel like we're trying to feel ourselves to be bigger and therefore more secure, and yet it feels kind of hollow or empty. We never actually believe our self-aggrandizement. So our practice isn't to try to move from self-criticism to kind of some sort of great self-belief. Actually, the real expression of care is allowing experience to be as it is in such a way that I'm not interested in the self-image behind it. I'm not trying to make myself small, self-criticism, but nor am I trying to make myself big. What I'm actually interested in is just, how are things appearing? How can I hold this mysterious life respectfully, gently? Our experience is worthy of our care, worthy of our caring attention, because it's here. Our experience is worthy of our care because it's here. We tend to divide up our experience. So we've got some bits that we know are worthy of our care, some bits we like, and then we tend to marginalize or shut out or shut down or try to ignore or try to escape from the bits that we've somehow decided aren't worthy of our care. And so we exist in this condition of being afraid of or judgmental of whole swathes of our own inner life. And in just that way that I was describing care as being an inherent aspect of awareness. Therefore, if the nature of awareness is to care for what shows up, then whatever shows up is worthy of care. It doesn't mean we necessarily condone. It doesn't mean necessarily. It certainly doesn't mean we're going to act out some of the strange or crazy thoughts we have. But even our dark thoughts, our kind of perverse impulses, or whatever it might be, they're worthy of care. Ironically, the more caring we are, the more gentle we are, the more non-judgmental we are towards what arises in our experience, the less compelled we are to take it so personally. So let's spend just a little time in meditation just emphasizing this aspect of the caretaking of experience, holding life gently. So letting your posture be a little formal, bright and upright, stable and steady. And as you feel your way into your meditation posture, as you track your experience contactfully, as you open up to however things are right now, just seeing what it means to sit here in a way that expresses care. So even though we might often use the language of awareness of breath or awareness of body, as you attend to your breathing and to bodily sensation right now, what is it to attend caringly? To inhabit this experience of sitting here. To inhabit this breath with care. Allowing yourself to be here. Allowing breath to breathe. Allowing bodily life to be felt. letting awareness be rather generous and gentle towards the ideas and images that flicker through consciousness. Allowing your experience to be just the way it is. To cultivate care is to cultivate the capacity to let yourself be. To allow your experience to unfold freely. To allow judgment and doubt to settle, to fall away. Like this, we befriend our experience. We accompany our own heart. We provide the care that we've always longed for. Like this, we orientate towards the heart's true ease and release. And invoking the quality of care. It doesn't mean one should feel any particular emotion. One doesn't necessarily feel caring or loving or gentle. One may feel confused or restless. But if that's true, just seeing, oh, can you care for that feeling if it's here? Can you hold that feeling gently? Can you let what's here, whatever it is, be here? There's no wrong experience. There's nothing that appears in awareness that isn't worthy of your care. Nothing that needs rejecting. Nothing that needs fixing. Experience arises wanting to be loved, wanting to be accepted. A cared for experience is a resolved experience. It's like this that we learn to love what is, whether we like it or not, whether it's pleasant or unpleasant, whether it's wished for or unwanted. We don't need to like what's happening in order to love it. It's in this way that care frees the heart from fear, from blame, from a feeling of wrongness. And so as we come to the end of the meditation, as the bell rings and you adjust your posture, just seeing as you continue to track your experience, if you can continue just to hold things lightly, gently. If you can hold your own fluid, changing experience in a gentle, caring embrace. It's interesting to speak about this quality of care. Like I was saying earlier, we know what care, what love, what tenderness feels like, and we love the feeling of it. And in speaking about it, it tends to invoke that quality. And so even though you may have had whatever, and we'll hear a little from you in a minute, whatever going on, passing through your mind in the meditation, there's a certain countenance I could see on your faces. There's a certain frequency we can feel in the room of a caring quality. Rather touching, just in sensing that as we sat together. So, just a little opportunity before hearing from those of you who are at home that may have comments and questions that you can still continue to write under the screen. Just an opportunity to hear a little more from those of you who are here. Either in terms of your reflections or experience now, as I've been speaking about care as this quality, or where you find it flourishing in your life, or where you find that it easily gets lost. So yes, please, Veronica.
Thank you. I was actually slightly confused about care. Previously, I associated with loving and kindness, and it seems you were suggesting more like acceptance. It's like an attitude, like whatever experience you have, you allow it to be. And just want a little bit more clarification on this.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm glad you asked about it like that, because in some way, yes. Like I think I used the word acceptance while we were during the meditation, right? And willingness to allow, actually I think I said more, to allowing what's here to be here, right? The trouble with the word acceptance, I think, is that it can suggest a kind of passivity. Well, I don't just accept whatever's here, I've just got to accept. There's plenty of things in life that are really not acceptable, that we're not asked to accept, that we're asked to stand up for and say no to, right? You see people, you turn on the news and you see endless reports of humans behaving aggressively, selfishly, etc. to each other. And we see, things happening, whether it's military aggression or social, the erosion of social liberties, or whether it's racism or sexism or any other kind of uncaring response in the world. What are we going to do? Oh, it's just the way things are. Just got to be accepted. No! Stand up and say no to plenty of things that happen in life. So there's a seeming dichotomy between, on the one hand, talking about acceptance and allowing what is to be here, and all those things that are not to be accepted. So when I'm speaking about care or allowing, it's not, I don't mean a kind of complacency or a passivity towards what's going on. And so sometimes rather than the word acceptance, I use the word acknowledgement. Right? Not everything's to be accepted, but to acknowledge what's happening. And that also includes acknowledging my own fear or unwillingness to look, or whatever it might be. And actually, out of acknowledging and holding gently what's happening, there's much more space to make a skillful response, right? Rather than when something unpleasant or difficult or something that we disagree with is happening, that we easily get into reacting aggressively or angrily ourselves. So when I'm using care, I'm using the Buddhist word that I'm referencing is metta, which is usually translated as loving kindness, like you say. But the word loving kindness, I think, sometimes can seem a little saccharine for people, or it can seem to suggest that if there's loving kindness, I should be somehow kind of beaming out some particular kind of sweet vibe. But care isn't necessary. It doesn't have to be sweet. Sometimes it can actually have a lot of. It's more noticeably strong, or powerful, or protective, right, or fierce even, than it is sweet. It has, by its nature, a certain warmth to it, a certain radiance, a certain friendliness. But I prefer to use the language of care to express that. And if others prefer the language of loving kindness, nice. Or just of love, simply. Yeah. So, just to check with you, does that respond to what you were asking about acceptance?
Yeah, I think that does. Thank you.
Okay, good. Please.
Thank you. So I actually found that a really useful exercise, and was able to maybe sit with it more readily than I was the other 2 meditations, which was great. But using the language of care brought up some thoughts in my head about some experiences with other people that maybe haven't resonated in a caring way with me. And not that I try to not let my mind go into the sort of whys and wherefores and agonising about the particular circumstances of those things, but just that I think it was quite an interesting dichotomy in my sensation about how I was feeling for myself in quite a caring way, but then had maybe more of a broader energy from other people currently in my life, or past in my life, or just, as you said, lots of the horrible things that we see on the news that are, there's an uncaring kind of energy. And I just would be interesting to have your comments on how we have a caring for our experience, but how it's in divergence to lots of other things that are going on or we've experienced in the past.
Yeah. So that's partly why I said in the meditation that the practice of care or invoking that quality doesn't mean that you should feel caring, right? But actually caring for your experience is caring for whatever might be there. So it may be that anger, resentment, outrage. When I watch the news, for example, anger and resentment and outrage arise frequently, right? And it would be disrespectful. There's an important reason why those might arise, because outrageous and things happen. So it's, and similarly on the smaller scale with people in your life, right? If there's people in your life who you feel resentful towards or you feel have hurt you, it's not that you somehow should suddenly start being caring to them. It's a process, right? And the intention is the intention is to be caring for myself, to be caring for others, to be caring for the planet, to be caring in all directions at all times. But it's a practice, right? So how the practice of care works on us is that then when we notice that we don't live up to that beautiful intention for whatever reason, because there's people who we feel nervous around or resentful towards or mistrustful of, then what's the care? You can't change that feeling into a feeling of care. The practice of care is to take care of the feeling, to take care of the fact that you feel hurt or mistrustful or resentful. So, contact. Oh, there's something happening here. Curiosity. What's this? Oh yeah, I'm doubtful or I'm tense. I don't trust this person. And then care, like being gentle with that. Letting yourself digest and explore the resentment or the mistrust so that it can clarify. So it's not that we change the feelings we have into some kind of sweet caring feelings, but caring for whatever the experience is, whatever the feeling is, allows it to be understood more, to be felt more, and to clarify itself more. And then as that happens, we tend to find that there's less personalized stuff in the way with other people. But the only way, like I say, the practice of care is one that takes us through the terrain of noticing whatever's in the way of that care, which may well be things like, hurt, resentment, mistrust, whatever historical wounds or whatever memories we've got of difficult situations with people, or whatever historical difficulties there may have been with other people that then get projected onto others.
Thank you.
Yeah. So we can't always demand that we feel caring towards X or Y person or X or Y situation. But in terms of the practice, we can always care for what's here. We can always care for what's happening. Even if what's happening is something that feels harsh or uncaring. The fact of turning gently, turning non-judgmentally turning graciously towards one's own judgments, or towards one's own pettiness, or towards one's own greed, or towards one's own competitiveness, or towards one's own mean-spiritedness towards someone. Right? The fact of turning caringly towards all my own defilements actually dissolves a lot of their potency. Because when they're cared for, the care is like that, like I was saying earlier, it's like a soothing balm. When I turn caringly towards the fact that I'm feeling all kind of mean-spirited towards you, it's like, oh, you poor thing, feeling that mean-spiritedness. And the care dissolves the meanness. It's in not caring for it that we then feel more compelled to act it out. So, care. All right, there's a little time for questions that you may have had, those of you who've been watching and reflecting and practicing with us at home. So I think Alex is going to reappear, and he'll have some of those questions to bring. Okay.
So we've had a flurry of questions coming over the last few minutes. So I'm not sure we'll get to all of them, but we'll certainly get some of them. So I think it's Joanna in Germany says, I'm curious why I'm eating without being hungry so often.
I'm curious why I'm eating.
Yeah, which I think can be a common thing, that it's like, and going back to what you were saying earlier about kind of just being in a kind of habit. So any kind of thoughts on, especially people, it's that time of year, everyone's on a plan to kind of get their eating in order.
Yeah, I'm curious why I'm eating, even when I'm not hungry. In some ways, it's there's all kinds of cultural encouragements to eat for a variety of things. Some of it's social, etc. But what eating literally, physically does is it fills us up. And if it's not your physical hunger that you're trying to feed, then the curiosity, I would say, is what are you trying to fill up? What's the hole that's there prior to the eating? And I think it's important not to include the different aspects, right? The contact, just to see if you can, when the impulse is there to eat, see if you can give yourself the permission to eat. Don't make it about whether you do or don't eat, but give yourself the contactful time and space just to feel what's there. What's there that gives rise to the impulse? What feels unfed or uncomfortable, or that wants to have something put on top of it or filled up? So the contact, letting yourself feel it, the curiosity to actually give the time and space to explore what's happening there. And the care part is like being gentle with yourself. So when you do find that you've had another biscuit and the intention was not to, that's okay. You're going to have very soon another opportunity to do the same process and to follow it through. And I would say you can just, in terms of the curiosity, before, during, and after. In other words, sensing into the feeling that's there before you're eating. If you do eat, see if you can just let that process be contactful. The tendency when we're doing something that we feel is an unhelpful pattern is to kind of go unconscious while we're doing it and then come back with blame afterwards. Right? So we lose the contact, right? Go unconscious. There's no curiosity to find out. There's just the kind of compulsion in the behavior. And then we feel bad and we blame ourselves, and then we've eroded the caring quality too. So those may be, in terms of the ways we've been describing, are some ways to just kind of to come more in touch with the process. Nice. Which kind of leads into the next question. There's a couple of versions of it, but I'll read out one and then just comment on the other. So it's from Jerome, who says, I have a comment from Martin. During the second reflection period, I found myself guilty for a habit
I ask myself if labeling it as unhelpful isn't somewhat contradictory to caring. And the other person was asking if you could just say a bit more, because you did touch on it, but the relationship between kind of being caring but also being disciplined. Right? You know, how we kind of get to show up without it being layered with a level of kind of shame and judgment. And you did speak to it a bit, but just perhaps a bit more kind of nuance on that.
So I would say that actually to work on yourself, you might say, to engage with not just body and heart and mind, but to engage with habits, to engage with the stuff that we get, the loops we get caught in, to recognize what's unhelpful and to recognize ways of freeing that up is an act of care. That our practice itself is an act of care. And it's not, I wouldn't say it's necessarily judgmental, or in fact that it isn't judgmental to recognize something as unhelpful. Like, does this conduce to my happiness and well-being and fulfillment? If so, it's helpful.
Even if in that moment it doesn't feel like the thing that we most want to do, right? Even if what feels helpful is I just want to go and lie and watch telly. It's like it takes a bit of discipline, but it's also it's ultimately what's going to support.
The discipline can be harsh, right? It can be shoulding, what I was calling earlier, shoulding on ourselves. Oh, I should sit more. I shouldn't watch TV. I shouldn't eat a biscuit. Right? And you can't sustain that kind of discipline, because the lack of care in it will just make you miserable. And yet the willingness to have a certain discipline, the willingness to work on yourself, the willingness to sit down and meditate, the willingness to kind of do what you know supports you, even though it isn't comfortable sometimes, that really can be an act of care.
Yeah.
You know, meditation can be quite uncomfortable, physically uncomfortable,
no
emotionally uncomfortable. A lot of the time we sit down in meditation, it's not all bliss and peace. It's just often just the friction of exposing ourselves to the compulsion that wants to get up and do something else. I'm meditating with boredom, with restlessness, with doubt, etc. It's like, why would I do that? Because the being there is an act of care. I'm not doing that to torture myself. I'm doing that to engage with, to find out about, to understand, to free up that habit energy. And so inhabiting one's practice as an act of care, recognizing it as an act of care, holding it caringly, and just to consider, like just to see when you sit down to meditate, or the way that you can even conceive of your whole practice. If it has a lot of shoulding in it, then just that quality of gentleness, inviting yourself to sit down and meditate as a way of inviting that kind of intimacy with life. And the invitation to yourself to sit down, I would say, is really, really helpful. How long you sit there for is, you might develop some length of time, but the most important is the invitation to sit down. So if you get tight around the shoulds of how long and when and how much, give up all of that stuff and invite yourself to sit down. And invite yourself to sit down for like a few breaths or a couple of minutes. Let the bar be set low enough that then you really consistently make it. You make the bar. And then you engender a sense of being aligned with what you love and value. You engender a sense of, caring for yourself and caring for your practice. If you set the bar very high and it's got a lot of should in it, you inevitably end up failing to meet the bar, and then you engender a sense of failure.
Even if you succeed once or twice, it's like people go to the gym and they haven't been for 20 years and pretend they're a teenager and kind of go completely mad, and they feel great the first time. Second day it kind of hurts, and the third day they can't walk, and it's like it's setting up for failure.
And unfortunately I know plenty of meditators who meditate in a rather dry or uptight way, or can be rather gung-ho or rather goal-orientated in their practice. And there's a kind of dryness to it.
Like if they're not driving themselves and working themselves hard, like they're not practicing.
Yeah.
Right. There's there's a question here that I'm going to perhaps put it in a slightly different way, but it's a question around basically why we neglect ourselves and why do we so kind of harsh and uncaring towards ourselves. It's from Karen, and she kind of also, she suggests things like busy lifestyle, lack of time, da-di-da. And I'm kind of guessing what you're probably going to do is flip the question to her as an inquiry of why she does that. And I suppose, and I thought it'd be interesting to broaden that as an exploration for people beyond this, of what can support us getting more clarity of why we are with ourselves that way, and what can support that perhaps softening and opening somewhat.
Mm-hmm. Well, there's two parts, I think, to the why. One of them is general and one of them is personal.
Right.
So the general is just the way we form a normal ego structure, a normal sense of self, right? Is that we have, it forms through the way the self talks to the self about the self. Right, which sounds a little complicated, and that's inherited, right? And it gets inherited as a way to try and keep ourselves safe or keep ourselves on the right track, as a way to provide some kind of moral guidance, even. And it's basically introjected from the ways we were morally or practically guided, and usually what that means, the ways we were morally or practically criticized, because that really goes in. So when you were told, you're so stupid, or when you were told, what's the matter with you, or come on, be a certain way, it's like, those things are really impactful and they get internalized. So every human being goes through that process, and we end up with a way that the self speaks to the self about the self, which is called different things in different traditions. Mara in Buddhism, the beta, the killer, that way of kind of being harsh with ourselves. The inner critic or the superego or whatever, it's different names psychologically. But the general tendency to evaluate the self constantly. And it's basically a way of keeping the familiar self sense intact by evaluating it. Oh, you're so like this. Oh, you shouldn't be so much like that. Oh, why can't you be more like this? And that's it's not personal, it's just human. And seeing it in that way takes a lot of the sting out of it. Like, rather than it's just me and my crazy mind and all the ways I'm so screwed up and I ought to be different, it's like, it's just human self evaluating human self in a human self type way.
But another way, we're all suffering together in a sense. It's like,
right. And then the other part of it, the personal bit, the inquiry, well, how come I've got a particular style of doing that? And then in inquiring that, one starts to uncover some of one's own history and how that's fed into it. And actually, I do a whole. I just see the opportunity for a plug.
I was going to do it for you,
but I do a whole month-long online course just on working with the inner critic and the kind of transformation, really, from inner critic to inner freedom, from a contracted relationship with oneself to a caring relationship with oneself.
It's called I See You Mara, right?
Exactly. Yeah. I See You Mara. And if people, there'll be no doubt some link to my website, etc. here that people can find out. And I think it next runs in May or June this year. So.
Yeah, great. A couple more questions. There's one from Matt. I noticed the urge to fit in with people around me in order to satisfy the need for connection. It can often lead me to acting in contradiction to the values of the 3 Cs. I therefore find myself mirroring others' behaviors, feeling more included, but also with a feeling of resignation that I'm not living to the values that I'd like to. Whereas if I do live to my values, I notice feelings of loneliness and shadow qualities like jealousy. Would you be able to comment, or do you have any tips for this?
It's quite in depth and specific to respond in the general, in a way. I would be interested to sit with you, Matt, and explore it.
I mean, perhaps to put it to paraphrase it a bit more, it's like when there's a contradiction between what's going to take care of our inner practice but how that then meets not fitting in or not being part of the community of people that are around us.
I would say if you feel like you're giving yourself away constantly, which it sounds a little bit like, giving yourself away to try and fit in, I would encourage you to experiment, right? Because the fear is, if I don't give myself away, I won't fit in. And I would doubt that that's true, actually. I think probably two things would happen. One is that you don't need to give yourself away as much as you think, and that actually people might be quite attracted, more than you imagine, to you being more real and more in line with what's really alive for you. And the other part of it is that those who really can't tolerate you being real, it's probably okay to let them go.
He says with a smile on his face.
It's, even though it can be a source of anxiety, and that's why there's the giving oneself away to try and fit in, because the anxiety is that somehow I would be alone, or I'd be unacceptable, people wouldn't want me the way I wouldn't want what I most am. And there's a combination, right? Mostly people will actually love you and value you and be attracted to you more than you imagine. And the ones who can't handle you like that, really?
It's really interesting, just reflecting on what you were saying, in that there's something about how there's something magnetic about people that are unapologetically themselves. And I just don't know why, but I was just thinking about, for example, American politics right now, and you've got these two extremes, in Donald Trump and Bernie Sanders, but they're kind of both unapologetically holding a belief system. Now, which one we agree with, it's like a separate conversation, but there's something about people that, some of the kind of wildest kind of celebrity characters that, whether we love them or hate them, we have a kind of, there's something magnetic about someone that's just, this is my truth, this is who I am. And we often shy away from that somehow, we want to kind of fit in and kind of be polite and be like others, and yet we kind of, as a kind of society, we kind of love people that just are themselves.
Yeah, so hence the encouragement to Matt to experiment.
Right.
You can take that experiment as boldly or as gently as feels appropriate or possible for you.
Yeah.
But I would say you could certainly take that on as a practice, just to experiment, going a little outside of the comfort zone and see.
Okay, great. Question from Joanna. If there are very strong traumatic emotions which are triggered, how can we work with these using contact, curiosity and care, particularly if it's already possible to observe it, but not the ability to control the intensity?
So the contact part is really helpful with that, and especially in terms of contacting something that isn't, in the case of something that feels too strong or that you recognize is triggered trauma, to actually shift the contact away from that, because otherwise it can be re-traumatizing, to shift it to somewhere where, so that you're not either on the one hand re-triggering the trauma, nor on the other hand just fleeing into some kind of abstraction. So where's a safe point of contact? And often it's helpful, the more traumatic or difficult or strong emotions are felt more in the torso or the core. So letting your attention go down into your legs can be helpful, down into your feet. If you can't feel your feet because of the degree of activation here, actually scrunching them up or pressing them into the ground or something. And feet are your friends, because feet don't. I've never come across anyone who get trauma activated in their feet. That's a bold claim.
That's a challenge,
actually,
isn't it?
it's a bold claim. It could be that one's had some injury to the feet, which But one is dropping down, letting yourself feel your feet can be very just kind of calming and soothing, right? And the other thing you can do is just to let your attention go outwards, to really just to feel the edges of your body, rather than what's happening more centrally. And there's a kind of it's not a word that's used in Europe so much, but in the States people often use this word titration for that. So just to titrate the feeling by that kind of coming in, and if it's too much, don't try to stay there. It's not caring. It's not to do battle with that stuff, and to let your attention cool out by feeling something that feels really okay to be in touch with. And usually either the edges of your body or your feet, or some more kind of neutral or easy sensation, means that you can still be, present, you can still be in contact, and yet you're doing so in a way that feels respectful, that feels possible, that feels gentle.
Yeah. Nice. 2 more questions for you.
Okay.
The first one is, how can people take what we've covered today and help support a deepening integration of that? And one thing that just comes to my mind is that many people watching this may have been part of the 1 month meditation challenge. And the website for that is just omchallenge, ommchallenge.com, and there's a 30 days of videos with you on there, and it's all completely free. People, if they want to, they can make a donation towards Care International, so we're raising money for refugees with that. So people have done that once, or they could redo it, or they could start doing that. So that's one obvious thing. But any other suggestions of what would support people with a just continuation, in a sense, of this?
Yeah. So I'm glad you mentioned the Om Challenge, because a lot of people have written to me recently saying how supportive it's been. And Alex and I filmed those videos together a year or so ago.
Yeah.
And whether it's those videos specifically, or something that supports you in a certain continuity of practice. So those videos can be a great support for that. Contact with others of like mind is a great support for that. In a way, I think, and that's why I use these 3 terms this week, because they're not, our capacity to be more contactful can be greatly supported by having a formal practice, but it's not dependent on a specific place or a specific activity. So, I would say really, how can you support yourself in these things? By supporting yourself in these things, by working with what it means to be contactful. And if all 3 feel too complicated, take them one at a time. I mean, either contact or care, right? You can't be, the benefits of training oneself in the art of contact are utterly life transformative. I was just meeting a friend recently, and he was saying how all these things are going well in his life, and yet, particularly when he's alone, he feels like there's some kind of disconnect. And it's basically, in listening to him, that's the disconnect, right? And it's causing all kinds of, just a lot of angst and distress in the person's life, because all things are going well, but out on the edge of himself constantly, looking for some kind of reassurance or gratification or certainty in the contacts with the world, in the content. And even if the content and the circumstances of one's life are going very well, the more dependent one is on that, the more one's actually moving out of contact with oneself. And we can feel the discontinuity of that, the non-integrity of that, and it feels horrible. It sows seeds of somehow just feeling not at home with oneself. And that baseline practice of contact, coming back to yourself even when it's uncomfortable, coming back to yourself and when it's too uncomfortable, like we were just saying, coming to somewhere where it just feels manageable. That's how you develop a kind of a trust in being able to land at home with yourself, to abide at home with yourself, and to know a sustainability of yourself that's actually then quite independent of whether the circumstances feel favorable or unfavorable. It's nice to have favorable circumstances, but it's actually not what's most critical. What's most critical is knowing how to be at home whether circumstances are pleasant or unpleasant.
Yeah, nice. So final question, people have been asking, how can they find out more about your work? And I know there's quite a few different bits you're involved in, but particularly it'd be nice to hear about some of the online stuff that you're doing, because obviously with our communities online. So yeah, I know you have your website, martinaylward.com, which I guess is a kind of, right, say an umbrella of the kind of different stuff that you're...
Sort of a window into the world of my activities, depending on how updated it is at any given time.
Right.
But yes, that's a good point of contact.
Yeah.
And then
yeah, say something about Worldwide Insight and what you're doing with that.
Yeah, so worldwideinsight.org is a website where there's a weekly meditation class, and there's some guided meditation, there's teachings are offered, and then there's also a live interactive part. So people, if you're watching at home, you can actually kind of dial in and have some video dialogue with the teacher. I'm involved with that a lot, but there are also other teachers that run it. So each Sunday there are various esteemed colleagues of well-known meditation teachers around the world, and mostly from the Vipassana Insight meditation tradition.
And it's what time on a Sunday?
And it's UK time, it's 7 p.m.
Great, so if you can come
so
on
you can
this
go
day,
pretty much straight into it. In fact,
on.
it's just started.
Perfect timing.
So that happens weekly, and that's a really good resource for the kind of sustaining of a practice, and the inspiration of getting some guidance, getting the sense of contact. There's people all over the world joining and following that, and yeah, so that's a good encouragement.
And there's also a series of courses, I think, that are released at different points that are kind of coming out.
Yeah, so the Mara course, like we just mentioned, is one of the longer form courses that link from that.
Yeah, great, brilliant. Well, look, firstly, thank you guys very much for being here and sharing yourselves. It's been a little bit cooler in the studio than it might have been, so I appreciate your kind of staying with that. And your interactions are really what bring it alive, and it's been really great. So thank you. And I also want to say a huge thank you to you, Martin. I always appreciate your teaching, but I also just appreciate you as a human being. I have a interesting life. I meet a lot of teachers and people kind of in this world, and you're just one of the people that just is most real, lives it truthfully and heartfully. So I really do appreciate you and being here. So thank you very much.
Well, thank you very much for having me. And likewise, just to appreciate all that you're doing with Conscious 2 and the great and growing body of resources that it is for people.
Great. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Great. And thank you guys for watching. And if you want to revisit tonight, then the replay will be left up for about 24 hours or so. And if after that you want to access tonight's events, or you want to have access to any other events we've done here on Conscious 2, then you can always upgrade your membership. It's at conscious2.com/upgrade. There'll be details, I'm sure, in the email that came out. And there's over 250 hours of workshops and courses and yoga classes with some of the world's leading teachers. So we'd love you to check that out as well. But for now, thank you for watching, and good night, and I hope you'll join us again very soon. Bye-bye.